back for more information about a VA loan. If we haven't met, my name is Chelsea Winstead. I am a home financing strategist and a mortgage lender. I am also a prior Air Force officer, so I have personally used the VA loan the past 4 homes that I have purchased. I help active duty and veterans purchase homes on the East Coast with a VA loan every single day. Okay, so I've done a more like high level video on the VA loan prior to this. I'll leave it in the comments, the date that I recorded this. But I want to talk through specifically a couple questions that I get all the time on VA loan follow-ups, like how do I use it, etc. Okay, first question that I get all the time. Number 1, what credit score do I need for a VA loan? Okay, so I will say this. VA loan is a little bit more flexible than some of our other loan programs. It doesn't necessarily... So the VA doesn't actually say like there is a minimum for sure that you have to have. However, typically most lenders want to see a beginning score of a 580, and we really like that is pushing it because there's probably then something that's going to flag and something that's potentially going to be a problem for us. Not that it's impossible, but best case is that we get you at least to a 620. Okay, so think VA loan ideal score for you is starting at a 620. Also, y'all, I'm just going to quickly preface this. If you see people on here who are like, oh, I can get you a loan for 500 credit score, they may be able to, but the interest rate and the terms of that are going to be absolutely atrocious. And I probably wouldn't even recommend that you move forward with it. So with that being said, work on getting your credit score to a 620. That is going to be the game changer. That is going to then allow you to move forward. Okay, the number 2 question, I think a lot of people, so with a VA loan, you have maybe heard of the VA funding fee, okay? People then kind of are like, okay, well, what is that? How much is it? Do I have to pay for it? What kind of closing costs are there? So let's kind of talk about the difference between funding fee, a down payment, and then closing costs when it comes to a VA loan. Okay, so FYI, okay, anyone who has a 10% or more disability rating, you're not charged a funding fee. Active duty service members also receiving a Purple Heart also do not pay for a funding fee. Okay, there's a couple other rules and line items there, but those are like the 2 main ones. The funding fee is essentially based on either if it's your first time using the VA loan or if it's a subsequent use. This also then is broken down by your down payment, but I'm going to do the most common. Most people who do a VA loan do 0% down payment. So the first time that you use a VA loan for no money down, 0% down payment, you pay a 2.15% funding fee. FYI, a funding fee is not actually a fee that you take out of your bank account and pay. This is a fee that is then wrapped into the loan itself. All right, so first time use with 0% down payment is 2.15% funding fee, okay? Subsequent use, so like the next time you use the loan or the third or the fourth or whatever time, once again, with the 0% down payment is 3.3% of a funding fee. Just to also explain this, so the VA funding fee is a one-time fee that is paid to the Department of Veteran Affairs, okay, to help keep the VA loan program running without having to use taxpayer dollars, okay? So it's basically the VA's way of saying, we'll back your loan like you as a vet, but like we're not doing it for free. But so it's essentially a mandatory fee on all VA loans minus the exemptions. And again, it helps offset the cost of the VA loan guarantee. This is charged as a percentage, as I discussed. So you can pay it up front at closing. Y'all, I have never seen a single person do this. Most people roll that funding fee into their loan amount. Okay, so VA loan, most people do the 0% down payment. You then can be charged a funding fee. Again, you don't actually pay this out of pocket. You roll it into the cost of you roll it into the loan. You still, though, have to pay for closing costs. I think sometimes when people see like the 0% down, it kind of gets you, it's a little confusing. You're like, oh, sweet, I'm gonna just like buy this house with no money. The reality, though, is that you still have 2 pockets that you have to pay for when you buy a home, okay? So your first is going to be your closing costs. So this is things like your attorney fee, your appraisal, your taxes, right? Like think of like the administrative fees that come along with buying a home. So that is actually still something you would have to pay. The other thing that you have to pay is your prepays, which are things like paying for your homeowner's insurance for a year in advance. Everyone does that when they buy a home. Paying for your property taxes for a year in advance. Prepaying for the interest between the day of closing and the day, like within the month. I won't bore you with the math on that. But so those are 2 things that you would still need to be ready to pay. However, with a VA loan, you can request that the seller pay for those things. So like right now, have somebody under contract, VA loan. We are going to closing table and they're going to pay a whopping $650 out of pocket because they are paying 0% down for the down payment. And we have negotiated that the sellers are actually paying for almost all of the closing costs, or like essentially the bulk of them. And they have to pay $500 out of pocket. So you aren't guaranteed to not pay anything at the closing table. However, if you can negotiate that the seller pays for your closing cost and you do 0% down for your down payment, you actually may close with very, very, very minimal money down. Okay. Next huge question that people don't understand. Can I use my VA loan more than once? The answer is yes. Okay. You can actually buy a home with a VA loan, still own the home, and actually buy a second home with a VA loan. There are some like things that we would have to run and some specific information I would need to know. However, the biggest, like I get this all the time with people, they buy a house, like a home previously, and it's a VA loan. And a lot of the time people will even sell that house. Like they move, they PCS, whatever, they sell it, they don't own it anymore. And they, for some reason, think it's like a one and done. Like you only get to use it one time. That is not the case. You actually have like unlimited usage as long as your entitlement is still available. And again, you can literally even have multiple VA loans out at the same time. This is actually like the way that I would explain this and give this step by step is actually a little bit complicated. And I feel like a little hard for most people to understand. The best way to do this is to get a certificate of eligibility. It's called a COE from the VA. You can do it yourself and like whenever I work with someone who's doing a VA loan, I pull this on their behalf. That document will actually tell us how much of your entitlement you have left. That then will dictate, can you still buy another home with 0% down? Do you actually now have to bring money as a down payment based on your entitlement? That COE is going to tell you how much entitlement you have left, and then therefore how much of a down payment you do or don't have to put down. But typically, just like conceptually, if you have no homes actively on a VA loan, like you had a house before that you bought with a VA loan, you sold that home, and now you want to buy another home with a VA loan, chances are that purchase again would be eligible for you to move forward with 0% down payment. Next big question I get is how much can I borrow, or like what's the max loan amount that I could use with the VA loan? This is kind of what is interesting. The VA doesn't actually set a cap themselves. However, the guarantee limit, so like the VA guarantee limit, is actually dictated and varies by county. Okay, so that is something that based on where you live, what you are buying, we would look up the county limitations to tell you what the maximum loan amount is based on your location. All right, this is the stinger and what I want to like walk through. Another big question I get is, can my partner be on my loan application with me if we are not married? Okay, so this is specifically for people who are like dating in a long-term relationship, have a fiance, whatever the case may be, but you are not married and you are interested in having that person be on the VA loan with you. Okay, so let's run through kind of different scenarios. So scenario one, you're not married and your partner is a civilian. So the answer is no. They are not allowed on the VA loan. You would actually need to apply solo, or we would have to use a conventional loan. The VA is not like, they will not allow a non-married partner that is a civilian to be on the loan with you. Okay, if you're not married, but you are both eligible veterans, yes, we can actually do a joint VA loan using each of your own entitlement to then together use a VA loan for purchase. If you are married to your partner, then yes, you can include them as a co-borrower, even if they are not active duty or a veteran. So that is the one caveat that the VA loan is into or not into, and that is having someone on the loan application or on title with you if you are not married and if they are a civilian. So if you are PCSing in 2025 to Langley, if you are coming to Camp Lejeune, if you are coming to Joint Base Charleston, if you are coming to Eglin, If you are getting stationed at any base on the East Coast this year, and or if you're a veteran and you are looking to move back home or you're looking to move on the East Coast and you want to work with somebody who not only knows how to structure and best support you using a VA loan, but who has personally used one many times, I would love to support you. Link on my profile for a variety of ways for us to connect and chat. You can always DM me with any question. And of course, drop a comment if you have any questions that you would like clarification on. As always, I am always here to help.